Okay, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Tenorio. I'm a security engineer at Brex, and this talk is on technical privacy review. So to begin with the motivation, so obviously as a privacy program, we're really interested in having good privacy outcomes for our customers. But when we looked at the scope of privacy review itself and tried to think about what we're really trying to achieve, what we're really trying to achieve with privacy review was influencing people. So influencing the engineers in our company, influencing our marketing team, influencing our product owners. And so we knew that because that was the ultimate goal of the privacy review as the first step in launching a feature that has privacy in mind, that's how we went and wanted to begin with people as the center of our review program. So what this kind of looks like is if you consider this Venn diagram as all the different privacy needs that all of these important stakeholders have with privacy. And when you're a really small and lean privacy team like the one we have at Brex, it's important that we optimize our discussions and conversations to meet the needs of all of these teams at the same time. So if we miss the needs of one of these stakeholders, then we're going to have suboptimal privacy outcomes. If we work primarily with engineering and legal to build our products, we might have something that looks great for compliance, works well as a service, but we might build something that's absolutely useless to the customer. Similarly, if we work primarily with legal and product, we might build something that looks great, but we might be missing some key hidden data flows in our systems that the engineering teams would have been able to alert us of. And to make this matter even more challenging is there are plenty of other stakeholders that continuously go in and out of the privacy's door. So from growth and marketing to sales as a company that's moving global to compliance when you have other regulatory bodies that you have to consider, the conversations become more and more complex, and it becomes really critical for privacy to be able to speak clearly to the recommendations that we have to make sure that customers can, or our internal customers, like our engineers, can move quickly and build privacy-safe products. So how do we approach this step? The first piece is that our privacy review is approached with a high level of empathy. We are privacy practitioners, and we speak privacy all day, but that's not the case for the majority of the people who engage with us in privacy review. So we begin by starting on common ground, which is at Brex, starting with how does this decision or recommendation impact our internal and external customers. Once we kind of set that stage and kind of meet our stakeholders where they are, that's when we can then begin to contextualize why we make particular recommendations, either through threat modeling exercise with engineers, working through data flow diagrams, and looking at the different architecture choices that our infrastructure engineers are making. Secondly, so we use a privacy working group to discuss kind of overarching privacy priorities within Brex. And we use these XFN working groups as kind of a sounding board to make sure that we're hitting the right mark in terms of the recommendations we're making in the privacy review. So within security, we receive anywhere from 1 to 3 dozen security reviews a month. And so what we do is we wrap up what these trends look like in terms of what type of issues are we seeing, what type of recommendations are we commonly making. And we present these to these XFN groups to try to kind of brain meld and identify areas where we can improve the overall privacy infrastructure for all of the engineers. And in addition to this, as we go through the review process that we'll describe, we provide ample opportunities for ad hoc feedback from other individual contributors and other engineering teams so that they feel fully involved in this two-way discussion. And then lastly, we want to evolve our process over time to grow with the organization. So as a privacy program, we're committing to build good privacy outcomes. We're not committing to process. So that's really what's been helping us drive and keeping the stakeholders very well vested into the type of work we want to do from a privacy perspective. So now we know about all the different people that are involved and can benefit from privacy review. What does this actually look like in practice? So the privacy team at Brex, we came from a variety of experiences from anywhere from large enterprise to government agencies. And one of the common things that we've seen in early implementations of privacy programs was a review that's full of spreadsheets, questionnaires, lots of checklists. And while this was great to kind of bootstrap a privacy program, we found that there were a lot of challenges here in making this a more two-way discussion with our engineers and product teams. So by having a separate document, you're lacking business context. Your engineers and your data scientists aren't really getting value out of filling out the spreadsheets, like it's primarily a compliance or legal-focused product. And we wanted to make sure that they felt involved and had some amount of ownership in building privacy outcomes for our customers. So at Brex, we decided to hide the word privacy review within an existing program called the Secure Product Lifecycle. So Secure Product Lifecycle is kind of Brex's take on the secure development lifecycle, where the security teams and the other risk teams are focused on building guardrails that engineering teams can operate within and work with them collaboratively and have a shared ownership around the mitigations and recommendations built around the different risks we identify during reviews. This has been really helpful because as an asynchronous kind of remote-first company, we want to make sure that there is never any hard dependencies on security and risk teams in terms of time, so that engineering teams can feel empowered to move quickly and safely. So within the secure product lifecycle, it has 4 phases from design up to live. And the technical privacy review fits here in the design phase. One of the things we approach our technical privacy review with is it's not just an artifact to be completed and then move on to the next phase. It's really the start of a conversation that continues on throughout the rest of the life cycle. So after we build our recommendations and we agree on certain commitments with our engineering teams, we want to make sure we're doing things like checking during development that the privacy commitments are being tested and the risks are properly mitigated. We then want to, as we move into launch and get ready to do dynamic testing and penetration testing, we want to make sure that all the information that we've learned about what data flows we expect are provided to the security engineers that are going to conduct those tests so that they know what to look for and focus on. So to begin with the design phase, again, we completely got rid of the idea of a separate questionnaire or a separate checklist, and we instead built our privacy review directly where the engineers were already doing design. So at Brex, we use our engineering design docs as memos, and we built in the privacy section as just yet another section within the engineering doc. So this seems pretty simple and straightforward, but this simple change of moving the work into where the engineers are already ideating, as opposed to having a separate output, we found provided really good behavioral change. So as opposed to seeing that privacy is something extra that you have to do, some other like stamp of approval you need to do before you move on, it became much more collaborative, where just a simple idea of seeing a header that says privacy makes an engineer know that this is not an extra step, but yet an integral step to build a fully complete engineering design. And because this is a fully documented and like well-structured document, this also lets us do really interesting things afterwards to help enable our other stakeholders. So for example, if we identify that a new product is going to collect new personal data, or maybe we're going to process it in a unique way with a new vendor, we can then take the structure of the document using AppScript and bring it into our template for our PIAs and our DPIAs so that completely transparent to the engineers, the legal team is already getting, and the GRC teams are already getting the context they need to start to understand what type of risks might be introduced that they need to start thinking about before launch. Additionally, what we found is that this also makes it really easy for us to track changes over time, which we'll get to in the next set of tooling. So let's say we've gone through the design phase and we've agreed on the privacy recommendations that we're making. We want to make sure that besides talking the talk, we're walking the walk during development. So our biggest component we have here to do this is we utilize static analysis a lot at Brex to make sure that our privacy commitments are being well tested and are actually executed within our code base. So what we use is we use a bot that we call DevSecOps bot, which really we should call DevSecPrivOps bot. And this is kind of our way for us to demonstrate that we're continuously helping and being available to the engineers as they develop the code. So in this example, as we identified that there's a potential leakage of personal information through logs, and we want to make sure that we're providing as much context that the engineer needs to either, 1, make a decision, or 2, for them to know where to reach out for feedback. So we use static analysis for a lot of things at Brex, anywhere from scanning for vulnerabilities to enforcing code patterns and good behaviors. And so in this example, we're using a static analysis rule to identify those types of log leakages that were unintentional. So the benefit of us utilizing this existing tool is that the engineers already are comfortable with working around static analysis and the tool set that we have. And so they feel much more empowered to contribute if they find like gaps or if they find a lot of false positives. They're able to help collectively contribute and make our privacy checks much better. This also ties into a technical privacy review, because if we identify that we want to do certain things like a privacy transformation on code before it goes to a vendor, then we can incorporate those rules as part of an action item out of the review, and then we can help those engineers check to make sure those balances are there during development. This has been super successful. We've saved multiple engineering hours of time within the first month of rolling out static analysis for privacy. just from the amount of energy time from engineers having to spin up vulnerabilities, as well as the remediation of getting rid of like logs that have already made it into production. And lastly, we also integrate our data map into our technical privacy review program. This is really important because as engineers provision databases or buckets, we use automation via Terraform to automatically connect all of this into our data map. And we use this as another check and balance to make sure that the data flows that we're observing or the type of classification of data that we see match what we agree to within the privacy review. So this way, if we see things like changes in scope or we see data flows that we weren't expecting, we utilize the information that we also collect from our org chart and our service metadata to make sure that we have a way to go back and reach out to that owner and understand where did this change in scope come from and identify where we could have helped them catch it earlier. So again, to kind of wrap up, the key part of our privacy review is that it needs to be a two-way discussion. And in this way, we kind of build a lot more ownership across both privacy and all the other teams here at Brex. We developed this review around existing processes to remove that feeling of friction, to remove the feeling of tacked-on privacy, and also to encourage that shared ownership. And then lastly, we, as a very, very small privacy engineering team, we try to index towards living off the land instead of building new tooling so that we can benefit from the collective knowledge of all of our other teammates. And that wraps up my presentation. Thank you for listening.